Join UF Hall of Famer and 14-year NFL vet Shane Matthews every weekday as he brings you all you need to know about your Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions with some of the biggest names in sports. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, or watch us live at 8 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
You're looking live at PodUp with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to carry. It's Tuesday. That means we have the Dean, good old Buddy Martin from the Buddy Martin Show. And then a second portion, the Gator fans are going to be so excited. We have recruiting talk from Blake Alderman, 24/7 Sports. So, Buddy, you're on the Titan MR hotline. Well, how's it going, my man?
Well, I'm barely here. I'm burnt out on television. I've seen so much TV, baseball, and golf the last 2 weeks that I'm lucky if my wife doesn't leave me. But I'm telling you, luckily she likes golf. But no, it's good. You know, I was thinking about how we consume sports. And Shane, we've seen a bunch of TV the last 2 weeks.
Buddy, you need to go take a walk. Get your wife, y'all hold hands and walk around the neighborhood.
No, you're right.
Look at the birds and the trees and enjoy nature. But yeah, congratulations to Gator baseball, battling back. Had to win 3 straight games and wipe the slate clean. Now the South Carolina Gamecocks are rolling in here. You know, there's a chance that 5 SEC teams could end up in Omaha. I think we've had 4 there before. I don't know. I'm sure Dan or somebody knows how many we've had out of the 8. But yes, but a couple of them got upset, man.
LSU, man, how about that, huh?
Well, they advanced.
Oh, they did. I thought you told me last night they didn't.
No,
they were behind, I guess.
Arkansas.
I knew Arkansas got knocked off, but okay, so LSU is in. All right, so yeah, that's pretty good. 5, I'd say, and these are regionals. You know, just getting them figured out who's going to where. I'm still a little confused. I know there's a rule that you can't always be the home team, but how Florida could twice be the visiting team at their own home ballpark in the regional. I don't think that could happen in the super regional, but maybe it could. Do you know, Shane? Maybe you tell me that.
No, it's some rule. I know, I follow Nick Delatorre, who does a tremendous job, especially covering the Gators in baseball. I was following him during the regionals, and he would pull up the rule book and highlight why we were the visiting team. So what's crazy is, what is it? Who is it? The Sycamores, Indiana State. They're advancing. They hosted. They should be hosting a super regional, but something's going on. They got to travel. I don't know what could possibly be going on your baseball field to not be able to host the event. Yeah, I don't know. I feel bad for those guys.
Yeah, really, that sucks.
Yeah. So, is Texas Dan on here? Texas and Texas A&M playing each other, Dan? Is that confirmed? Boy, that's going to be a good series there. I think it's in at Bluebell Ballpark. Andy says, shouldn't the host team have some benefit of their season and be the home team?
That's my point.
I agree 100. I agree 110% with that.
Yeah, I do.
It doesn't matter if you have to play 10 games during the regional. You should be the home team. If your building says Florida Gators on it, Florida Gators should be the home team.
And why wouldn't you? What's the advantage of winning and hosting if you can't be the home team? I don't get it. So you're right, Andy.
Well, Stanford beat A&M, so that is okay. So here, that's exactly what I want to see. Brian, I appreciate you chiming in here on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mello. He says Indiana Special Olympics for the 51st straight year. Oh, okay, so they're using the ballpark for that. All right, well that makes I feel a bit better there. But boy, what a bad break for them.
Really?
It's great that they host a Special Olympics every year there. But they have a chance to go to the College World Series. I don't know when the last time or if Indiana State ever has been.
To anything except when Larry Bird was there, right?
That's right. That's right. So anyway, so buddy, We talked on your show last night that you did a piece and let everybody know how they could read that piece about how you feel like the baseball team kind of fed off the grit and the
Yeah.
grind from the Gator golf team. Have you ever, I mean, think about what I just said right there.
Yeah. Golf.
Yeah. The grind and the grit and the determination of young kids playing golf.
Well, I haven't written the piece yet. I'm going to write this
Oh,
week, I think.
oh,
But I did write a little blog, short little thing about it on GatorBait. Of course, if you'd like to sign up, we'd like to come over to see some of our great baseball coverage. Fran Spears done a fantastic job, and Kyle Curtis, I guess. But the point is that I presented this scenario, and I said it's a reach. I'll say it's a reach. I'll admit that, and but I do think there's something there that the that a team that shows the grit and grime, as you said, and guts, you used to call it guts, to fight through adversity when they're counted out. And Shane, I don't know if you told me or somebody told me that Florida's golf coach gave a little one of these thinking he was done. They were done, and they were done, by the way. Team that came back 3 straight times under really unbelievable conditions, down 2-0 against Florida State. Anyway, they did, in fact, win both the individual, don't forget that, and the team championship at a time when we thought they were out. Now, I raised the question and the premise and the theory that these kinds of things, I have seen it in sports before, that one team, especially when it comes to hustle and guts and what have you, can inspire other teams by their actions. And we saw the Gator baseball team, and I asked last night, raise your hand if you thought they had a chance. And they were down 3-0.
I
And
said yes.
you raised yours, but I got to tell you, if more than 3 people raise their hand, they're lying, because most everybody I talked to said no. I didn't, and even the most ardent fans said I thought they were gone, they were done. So to come back,
negative people out there.
yeah, but I mean,
Nellies.
but think about it. You look, you like cards and poker. One of my friend Tom Schmidt and a friend of yours, he brought this up as an example the other day that he was playing in a $1 million poker tournament, and he was down to, and he had a great hand. And he said there was a 2% chance that the guy could draw the card that beat him, and guess what? He drew the card and lost. So the odds were stacked against both the golf team and the baseball team, and it was inspirational the way they came back. And the question now is, can that become like a trademark for Gator fans? And Fransbury had a great point last night about that. I said, I don't know how you develop that. And we go back to the 06, 07 basketball team, 06, 08 Gator football team, how they kind of meshed, and Urban and Billy were friends. In fact, we're going to have Urban on our show tonight. But you talk about those kinds of, I don't know if you call it osmosis or whatever it may be, and there is something there. And Franz brought up an interesting point. The new facility that Florida has the Jeremy Foley Champions Room, which is where all athletes from all sports can go and eat. And he says you'll see 2 track people sitting with 2 football people, 2 basketball people sitting with any athlete can eat. They're mingling. I don't know whether that's having to do with it or not, but yeah, well, I think it's a really positive sign.
Well, the good thing about that is it kind of brings back the days back when I played, and I felt like sports kind of went a different direction when they got rid of the athletic dorms, because I thought that brought team unity because you lived together. And we used to eat right there in Yon Hall at the bottom, the back side of the east side of the stadium right there. The cafeteria was there. So exactly what you're talking about, buddy. There's football players. We're sitting with basketball players, tennis players, golfers, track. Everybody's eating together. And then right next door, you got the ping pong tables, the pool tables, and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's what's great about college athletics. And that's why I got to meet and get to know people and still know them to this day. Whereas, now when you come in as a freshman, now I know they live in some other like fancy place across from off campus. As a freshman, you have to live there. Whereas a freshman, when my son was in school not too long ago, you had to live in the Flavette dorm right by the baseball field, the old baseball field for 1 year. Then you can move off campus. But once you move off campus, you may live with some players, You may live with some frat boys. You may live with just friends from town, but you just don't have that bond. And I just think it's really ruined not ruined college sports. That's not right. It's just
it's different.
You don't have that loyalty, I guess.
Right.
That's where you build that bond. And I don't think as many people would be transferring if they still had to live in the damn athletic dorm, quite honestly. So anyway,
for Shane, who did you hang with? What other player, athletes, people besides football players did you hang with? Anybody?
Well, I hung out with a lot of the golfers. Yeah, and basketball as well. It's not so much I hang with them, but we'd be sitting at a table that's for 10, and there's only 4 football players sitting there. Well, there may be some basketball players that roll in, or it could be some golfers like DeMarco or Dudley Hart or something. They just sit down and you shoot the breeze with them, and then next thing you know, you're out there playing golf with those guys. So it's pretty cool. Tennis.
It is cool.
I mean, Lisa Raymond and Andrea Farley and these girls. That's how I got into tennis because of watching them play. So
interesting.
And Andy Brandy was the coach back then when I was in school.
Love that name. That's my favorite name, Andy Brandy.
He'd come sit down there and talk to us as well. So it's pretty cool. And anyway, I think you're onto something there, buddy. It's a lot. You always talk about the vibe from Gator Nation.
Yeah.
It's somewhat positive right now, and we're going to hear how positive, or if it is positive from a recruiting standpoint, from Blake Alderman in the second portion of today's show, because everybody saw what was all over Twitter. So who knows? Did Franz
even you are talking about recruiting now? That's something when you start talking about recruiting. Well, I know, but it's necessary. Look, it's part of what we do. I mean, look, how can we be? Listen. As consumers of sports, we already got all the baseball and golf we've been watching. We haven't even watched. I didn't even watch the NHL. I watched 10 seconds of it. The NBA playoffs are fantastic right now. My Nuggets got beat. I want to talk about Nikolai in just a minute. And we got all those plus the normal stuff. Like I follow the Rays in baseball. Shoot, bring something else up like an event. We watch golf, PGA Tour golf. And then you got recruiting. And recruiting is not something you can just turn on the TV and watch. You can't really get a whole lot of it online. Some sites devote themselves to it. On 3 others like that. 247. In fact, we're going to have a guy for 247 on tonight too. So I think the question is, how much space can you cram in your head that's involved with recruiting and things like that? It's difficult. That's why we have experts on our shows to talk about it. It's a thing, Shane. It's a thing.
Yep. Ruzoga State Farm Office is a team of dedicated insurance professionals ready to help life go right with the right insurance options for you and your family. Visit ogreninsurance.com. Give them a call at 352-240-1779. Speaking with Buddy Martin from the Buddy Martin Show on the Titan Tomorrow Hotline, Blake Alderman from 24/7 Sports going to give us a recap of Billy's Maybach and all that good stuff. Todd on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mellon, has a question for you, buddy. He says, buddy, tonight are you going to ask Urban his thoughts on the new Netflix movie coming out?
I'll see if he wants to talk about it. I'll certainly ask him. I have no idea. I've heard all kinds of things all over the place, but speculative. I mean, when I talked to Urban about it like 6-8 months ago, he thought it was going to be a positive show. I'm not so sure. I don't know that it's going to be that because of what other people are saying.
So if it's, I guess my question is, I don't understand how any of this. You're a movie star, but you're in the movie business, buddy.
Sure.
So whoever decided to produce this movie or whatever it's called series, obviously they're making money off of it.
Swamp Kings, yeah.
Okay. But is it a former player that put this thing together? Bates does a bunch of little series here and there, but hopefully, I'm hoping this thing doesn't spin a negative light on the program, but we don't really know. But I wouldn't think if a Gator player was behind this that they would do that, right?
Well, I don't know who's behind it, but it's not a Gator player. And when you turn over, whenever they come to you and say, Shane, you did this at ESPN, but that was a positive show you did, even though it was about a game you lost, the tremendous series that ESPN did, or show that's on you and on Alabama and the Alabama game and the interception and stuff, which you handled great. But when you do this and you want to dig deep and take a deep dive, as they say, into something, and the big boys come to you, ESPN, and say, we want to come and talk to you and other people and do this, there's no guarantee they're going to make it a puff piece or a pro Florida piece. When you give them editorial license, which, by the way, no really good producer would ever do one without having that. They've got to have that freedom. So you're taking a risk. You don't know what's going to happen when they open Pandora's box. I mean, they got players, a couple of players in there they've already talked about. Urban seemed to think it was going to be somewhat positive, and it is a terrific idea talking about that era and what happened and reliving it. It's been what's 08? How many years is that? What is that? I can't do the math. So time is passing by. There's a whole bunch of people that don't know that much about the national championship team in 06 and 08 and all the great things they did. I think Brandon Siler somehow or another is involved. I'm not sure he's not involved in the production of it. So I don't know a lot about that, but my first impression was it was going to be, I won't say pro Florida, but favorable to Florida. But I'm beginning to hear dribs and drabs, and friends told me last night, and who knows, that it might be some juicy, dicey stuff in there, which cannot be good if you want to go down the road of things we know that happened during Urban's regime. Part of which he deserves credit or blame for, part of which he does not. So we'll see. And I don't really know what it's going to be. I don't think Urban's going to talk about it that much, but he'll be on tonight. I want to talk about recruiting with Urban because there was one guy that changed the whole trajectory of the Florida program. You know who it was? When Greg Madison and Urban went to recruit Tim Tebow, he was going to go to Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the recruiting part of it. In terms of the Netflix series, to answer your question, we'll have to wait and see. I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of comments here saying it's zero chance it's going to be positive. We'll see. Back to my 30 for 30, which was the first one ever done.
Was it really? Wow, that's something. That's great.
Well, I'm pretty sure it was. I was thinking, and I'm still pissed off about it, buddy. Mm-hmm. I should be getting royalties every year from every championship game that's being played, because the title of that documentary was The Play That Changed College Football.
Yeah.
So if we win that game, there never ever would have been another championship game, not only in the SEC, but anywhere in America. So don't you think I should be getting a royalty for every one of these damn championships?
Well, I'd like to say yes, but no. Because you don't have, it's not, I mean, look, there are lots, does Michael Jordan get a royalty every time somebody mentions his name? I mean, it's part of who you are. You certainly, I mean, you had the opportunity to talk about that when they interviewed you, but obviously they're not going to go pay people to be on TV or there'll never be a documentary. You get a lot of credit, and I can understand how you feel about it, but it's not fair when it comes to that. It's just not. Now, look, if I do books with people, I make a deal, do a book with Steve Spurrier or Urban Meyer, I share. We almost go 50-50 on whatever we make, which is not that much money, but it's the only fair thing to do. Now, if you're doing a special deal, depends on your agent and the deal, but in most type of cases, the money probably goes to somebody else.
Well, I have the people in the state of Alabama love me. So
yeah, because you saved that. By the way, you saved the SEC championship game, and that one pick. That was such a brutal play. I mean, yeah, I've talked about it, written about it. It's in Spurrier's book. We talked about it. What happened is that you don't want to throw your receiver under the bus, but he ran a wrong route.
Having said all that, it still was a terrible decision.
No, it wasn't terrible. Well, it just happened. That's part of sports,
isn't it? It happened.
I mean, it's what.
I'll have to tell the story one day when I was taking my daughter up to Mississippi State for orientation. Driving through the state of Alabama. I'll tell that story one day when we have more time.
Well, we'll do it on my show. And by the way, maybe you and I will talk about doing a little small book one day. We'll make $5 a piece on it.
All right. This is a text on the Titan Bar text line from Daryl. Says, good morning. Glad BT and Josh got their swings fixed in batting practice.
Did they ever? Wow.
We are really going to need them going forward.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we got a bunch of text here. This is from, not sure who this is from. It says, I think it's going to be a mix, a hit piece and a story about a group of incredible athletes. I guess he's referring to the Netflix series. Chris from Cottondale on the Langham intercept. Here we go. Was Monty Duncan supposed to come back to the ball and meet it, not allowing Langham to pick it off, or was it on you? Also, why was Monty game at that juncture? Just wondering. Chris,
Good
thanks
point.
for the text. Okay.
Yeah.
Jack Jackson played that position. Jack tweaked his hamstring about 2 series before we got the ball back tied up, having a chance to go win it. It was a smash concept where the outside guy runs a hitch and Willie Jackson runs a corner from the slot. And Monty went a little deep on his route. Sometimes your pre-snap read, it tells you take your steps, let it go, throw the completion, let's get going. Remember, we didn't play in the shotgun. I never played the shotgun, so I was under center.
Yeah, sure.
And Monty probably went a little deep, but I made a bad decision. Wish I had that throwback. And like I told you, I threw all the interceptions I threw in my career, buddy. College, high school, Pop Warner, flag, NFL. That's the only one that was ever run back for a touchdown.
Really? And it's got to be a nightmare for you. I did a piece on dreams a couple of weeks ago, and a lot of people had things. I wondered about your dreams. You ever dream about that play?
Oh, yeah, that play.
You literally do dream about it. I mean, real dreams.
But then again, I sit there and try to tell myself, if we win that game, you know who would have won the national title that year? The semis. No. The semis. So that was
really. Well, okay, you helped them too. Helped us too in that regard. It was just, I mean, Shane, you were a great player. That one play does not define you, but it is one of the most monumental plays in the history of Florida football.
Well, and not just Florida football, all of football.
Yeah. Excuse me, I didn't know you were global, for crying out loud.
Well, it's you didn't hear what the name of the damn movie is. The play that changed not Gator football, but college football.
Yeah, I saw it, and yes, I did.
Art asks, Shane, what time will they announce the super regional game times? Tony says at 10 a.m. this morning. So we'll find that information out today.
Friday or Saturday. I wonder if they start at Friday or Saturday. Anybody know that yet? They weren't sure.
I would hope we're Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Sometimes they go Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So I don't really know. It's all about TV. Yeah. Greg says, why did BT already say he will not pursue professional baseball? I did not hear that. Did you hear that?
Yeah, I've heard it. Yeah. I haven't heard him say it. I've heard other people say it. Well, I actually did hear him make a comment. He said, I'm not going to be earning money. I'm going to handling people's money to be able to handle it. He agreed, I don't know the firm, to do this job. I guess when he was at Coastal Carolina, he interned with his company. I really getting sketchy here. And it was something to do with financial management. And he really liked it. And he got into it and dug into it, studied it, and decided then, I'm not going to play baseball. I don't want to play baseball. I want to go to my profession right away. Now, I respect that a lot.
Wow.
But I wonder if a guy comes waving under his nose, $4 or $5 million, if he might say, well, I can do this job later. Sounds like he's committed to it, Shane.
That's interesting. I was not aware of that.
Yeah, his dad said it even.
Well, I think people it's so hard to make it to the major leagues. I mean, think about all the great college players that you've seen that never make it. So good for him. Yeah. Dan says it should be Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Reserve seats on sale Wednesday and singles tickets on Thursday. So
saw that today. Yeah, they announced it.
Okay. All right. We got a lot of comments here about the Cliff says they already did a documentary on Aaron Hernandez. We don't need to see that. So anyway,
Shane, one day I'll share with you my somewhat inside knowledge on Aaron Hernandez. Okay. Because I've been sworn to secrecy, but there are things that happen that people don't know that, that wouldn't probably change how you feel about anything. But there were a lot of things that went on with Aaron Hernandez case that people don't know about. And I know one of the guys who handled it. And I'll share what limited knowledge I have about it one day. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Buddy, I don't know if I did this with you. I can't even remember who was on my show yesterday. JC and Scott Carter. But maybe it was on your show last night. Switching gears a little bit towards Gator football, which we'll talk with Blake Alderman about. Mm-hmm. People, different publications that come out and said the Gators win total at 5.5.
Right.
Then ESPN comes out and has the Gators favored in 8 of their 12 games.
Right.
So that contradicts the 5.5 win total.
Yeah, but one of them is gambling. It's DraftKings. They
Right,
set
right.
the
So I'm saying,
line.
well,
So it's a little different.
They're both
One's
gambling.
Well, some people just make, I think ESPN was just simply a prediction, wasn't it?
No. ESPN had the Gators favored.
Oh, yeah, but on FPI or whatever that is, right? Whatever
okay. Well, regardless, they have them favored to win 8 of their 12 games. Okay. So that means they should, if things go according, they should win over 8 games. All right. On 3, and I mentioned this on my program yesterday, I thought on 3's predictions based on returning production, recruiting, history, all this nonsense. Where do you think they have the Gators ranked?
You nationally?
Yeah.
I didn't know they even had them ranked.
Well, that's my point. They got them ranked 21st in America.
Yeah. That's
too. Yeah. I think I just need to come out with my own poll and get.
Well, that's Shane. That's what it's about. I mean, anybody can make their poll. We could do a poll together.
Well, let's do a poll.
Well, actually, my friend, my friend and I, Joe Williams in Denver, who I did radio with for 25 years, we decided to do our own poll every week. We did our own, screw the AP and all the other stuff. We did our poll. We could do that this fall. We could do our top 10. I'd like to do this. Let's put it down. Let's do it.
All right, we'll have to do that for sure.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think we have a little knowledge about football. When you think a little bit. So
yeah, I mean, I don't know enough about all the teams around the country.
Well, but you watch TV, you only got no 10. You probably got a 15, but I mean, you have a pretty good idea. You have enough. If I ask you about Utah, you know a little bit, right? Yeah, a little bit about them. So study up, Shane. We'll do our own poll, the Buddy and Shane poll.
All right, I got a text here that came on the Titan Mar text line from Sharon. She says, "Buddy, how do I subscribe to Gator Bait these days?"
Oh, I love you. Thank you very much. Love you. Appreciate it.
But Buddy had dollar signs going off in his head.
Listen,
when he heard me say that.
I'm just saying, we're a family business. We go paycheck to paycheck in this company. We struggle. And some of your listeners are. I'm not trying to solicit on your show. It's very simple, and we would appreciate you telling your friends about it because we think we have a pretty good array of writers like Franz Beard and different ones. So you go to Gator Bait Media, gatorbaitmedia.com, log on and pick a plan for what you want to do. We would love to have you. We're trying to expand our membership. We've got a rough summer ahead because business is often in the summer, and we need every dollar we can make, and we can do it. I don't want to beg, but I'm begging. Please join gatorbaitmedia.com.
All right. Before we get you out of here, buddy, Andy asks, "Buddy, will the Nuggets bounce back from Sunday's loss? Who's your favorite Nugget of all time?"
Oh, you know what? You're right in my heart, Andy. I was just going to say this. Think about
Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf.
Well, there's a piece called The Stand, a movie about him. And my friend Joe.
He was my high school rival.
Was he? Yeah. What a shooter.
I used to shut him down, buddy. I'd get up in his face.
Oh, you didn't shut anybody down. He shot threes over you like rain. And that guy could shoot the three. Listen, I'm going to say this. I don't take up your time. But there's a movie called The Stand. I looked it up. My friend Joe Williams is the main person they like you on your movie. I think he did because he was the first one to identify Mahmoud of not standing for the Star Banner. Star Spangled Banner. Star Banner was my newspaper. Star Spangled Banner. He was the first one. He did it unnoticed, and Joe did a talk show about it, and brought it up. And they did a whole series on this whole thing, how it started. I think he was a misunderstood athlete and suffered greatly because of his actions. But what a player he was, and a pretty good person too, by the way. Real quick, which one doesn't fit? Michael, Magic, Kareem, Larry, Shaq, Nikola? Are you kidding me? I heard him say the night before last that they thought he was one of the top 10 players of all time in the NBA. That's a lot coming from Mark Jackson and those guys. I mean, here's the amazing thing of the Nuggets. My all-time favorite Nugget is Dan Issel because I wrote his book. And I love Dan Issel. He led on a team with Alex English and Kiki Vandeweghe. They all averaged 20 a game, no defense. Didn't win, but they were great and fun to be with. Now, this guy, Nikolai Jokovic, I don't know. You tell me, Shane. Have you ever seen a guy with the touch he's got? His passing, his shooting, his rebounding, his ball handling. Now, I thought Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was pretty good as as a center in the NBA, but he didn't have the skills this guy's got. He is absolutely amazing. He could be a top 3 before it's over. Yes, they lost. I think they'll come back and beat Miami in the game 3. I think they'll win the series 5 or 6 games and they're out. This Nuggets team is really special, and they are on fire about it in the Mile High City.
Yeah, he's outstanding. I mean, this sounds silly. He's way more of a basketball player than Kareem was, because I mean, he can take you outside.
Yeah.
He can lead a break. He's a really good player, buddy. I want you to hear this day in sports before we get you out of here. It's brought to you by Campus USA Credit Union. Put some star power to work in your financial life. Campus USA Credit Union. I didn't really know this. Maybe you do and don't. 1969, Joe Namath resigns from the NFL after Pete Rozelle, the commissioner, said he must sell his stake in a bar.
Of course, in New York City, a huge story. Yeah, because he was associated with some gamblers, and Rozelle suspended him. It was a big story. Broadway Joe. He was.
Where did he go play? Did he just not play that year?
Well, I don't think he was suspended the whole season. I'm not sure, but I was there. I mean, I lived in New York in 1970. I knew Joe a little bit, but no, he was a star of stars in the game too. Remember, he's kind of the guy that brought about the merger of the AFL and NFL, because he beat the Colts that year in the Super Bowl III, and he went on to become a mega star in New York City. But yeah, he got suspended. I don't know. I have to look it up. I don't think he lost the whole season or not. Might have been part of the season, but yeah, it was definitely a big deal. Yeah, big deal. Broadway Joe was suspended, and I got to think of the name of the bar. I used to know it like the back of my hand. I can't. I'll get it for you next time. Big story.
Gene says, "Wait, did I just hear that QE matched up with Chris Jackson in high school?" Yes, he was one of the best to come in the O-Dome. I'll never forget my freshman year in the dining hall before all the athletes are getting ready to walk over and watch back. I said, this kid named Chris Jackson, wait till you watch him play. And he dropped 50, I think, on us that night. Yeah, he was phenomenal. I also played against another crosstown rival in high school. Devin Booker's dad, Melvin Booker, was my same age, who went to Missouri. We had some really good basketball players that came out the same year I did. And I'm telling you, Chris Jackson's the best high school basketball player I've ever seen. Really? With Tourette's, but he could shoot from anywhere.
Amazing. By the way, there was another guy named Maravich who wasn't bad either, but before your time. And he played in what was then called Florida Gym. And I was there that night. What a player he was to watch. Phenomenal. His dad, Press Maravich, had told me about his son 3 years before. 4 years. What do you see him? He was a Harlem Globetrotter, if there ever was one, who was white and played. He's an amazing player. But two great players right there, both in that part of the country. Amazing. Chris Jackson was probably the most underrated player I've seen, and one of the great shooters in the NBA history and college history.
All right, buddy. Appreciate your time. Enjoyed everything. We're going to get to Blake Alderman. We're going to take a quick time out. You're watching and listening to PodUp with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Be right back.
We want to take this moment to thank our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official injury and accident law attorneys of the Florida Gators. Peaceland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte.
Campus USA Credit Union.
QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Dave & Buster's, eat, drink, play, and watch. Our gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Celebration Point Town Center, Chris Doring Mortgage, Silverback Concrete Co., Ruse Ogre State Farm Insurance, Doreen Wibby, Realtor Caldwell Banker, MM Parish. Our touchdown sponsors are Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteak, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Aver and Smith, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Silver Cube Billiards and Sports Bar. If you're interested in promoting your business on the show, call Freddie at 352-284-3733. If you like what we're doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Steve Spurrier here. You know, making a reservation at my restaurant is easier than a Saturday afternoon homecoming game against Vandy. You don't have to call or email. Just go to spurriers.com, hit the reservation button, pick a date, a number of guests, and a time. It's so simple, I can do it. In fact, I just did. Maybe I'll see you tonight.
I'm like right on the outside of Auburndale, almost to Polk City. I'm like
Spurrier here. You know, making a reservation at my restaurant is easier than a Saturday afternoon homecoming game against Vandy. You don't have to call or email. Just go to spurriers.com, hit the reservation button, pick a date, a number of guests, and a time. It's so simple, I can do it. In fact, I just did. Maybe I'll see you tonight.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, Celebration Points, where the Gators go to celebrate with premium brands like Regal Cinemas, Prime & Pearl, Dave & Buster's, Nike, Skechers, F45, and the HBC's restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, the #1 celebrity polished casual restaurant in America. We'll see you at Celebration Point. Let's go to the Titan More Hotline. We're joined by Blake Alderman, 24/7 Sports, does a tremendous job covering recruiting, especially the Gators. Blake, how you doing, my man?
I'm good. I'm driving the dad mobile back home. Just dropped my daughter off, so I appreciate you guys working with me to get me on here.
Absolutely. Well, there was a big weekend in Gator Nation in Gainesville. We saw it all over Twitter. Billy and his Maybach. I didn't even know what a Maybach was. People informed me yesterday on what a Maybach is. But just overall, give me your thoughts after you spoke with some of the players that left Gainesville.
You know, I think a lot of these guys have only taken a couple visits. You know, one guy even in particular, Ori Williams, an offensive tackle out of Texas, he was making his first ever visit. You know, sure, there were some guys that have taken multiple visits to Florida, but, you know, the vibe from guys that have even, I mean, even Kendall Jackson, hometown guy right there in Buchholz High School in Gainesville, has taken multiple visits to Florida. But this was one where he said it was completely different. That's really what you get out of the official visit. You know, instead of a couple hours with coaches and staffers that you get during a regular one-day unofficial, you get a couple days with them. You really get to see, you know, kind of behind the veil of these guys and these coaches, you know, get to see how they tick. You get to meet some of these coaches' families at some time. It's just a lot more in depth. You know, I think overall a lot of these guys had a really good visit. But, you know, that's what official visits are made for. They're made to be awesome. They're made to roll out the red carpet, blow some of these guys and their families away. So, you know, I think overall it was a really good visit. You know, I know a lot of people will kind of circle back to, well, where are the commitments? Why were there no commitments out of such a big visit weekend? And, you know, maybe there's some merit to that. You know, sure, you want to, of course, coaches want to make a big statement and they want to, you know, get the commitments. You know, they want the commitments just as much as fans do. But I think at the end of the day, they laid a lot of groundwork for a lot of these guys, a lot of big-time targets for Florida. And if you look back, it's all about just landing them. If it's not this weekend, just land them at some point. It's all about closing things down. And if this weekend helped lay the groundwork into eventually landing these guys, then it was a successful weekend. But overall, you know, a lot of guys really spoke highly of this visit. A lot of parents spoke highly of this visit. I think the coaching staff does a really good job with these visits. They're really well planned out. A lot of these people are very genuine and they give off that vibe to the recruits and their families. So, you know, overall, it was a really good weekend from all accounts from these guys that I spoke with on Sunday after their visits wrapped up.
Andy's got a question for you here, brought to you by Mellon Law. It says, Blake, it looks like Billy's building a great front seven on defense. Who would be the best signings between Jamonta Waller, David Stone, Jaden Jackson, or Dalen Evans? Can we get them all?
You know, I think Florida's in a good spot for a lot of those guys. You know, I think David Stone, I'd lean towards Oklahoma for him. You know, he's from Oklahoma City. I know he attends IMG Academy there in Bradenton, and it's obviously a much easier drive to get to Florida, you know, if he was back home in OKC. I still would lean towards the Sooners for them. I think Dalen Evans is one that Florida's in a good spot for. You've got to flip him from Texas A&M, though. You know, he's a guy from Texas, and I know Florida's got some footing that they're getting there in Texas, already landing 2 big-time players out of that state. It's never an easy feat to flip a guy, you know, but I think that Florida has done a really good job there. And you know, even speaking with him after his official visit, you know, he told me that Florida's probably a little bit ahead of A&M right now. But I think if you look back, he's still committed to A&M. You know, that's great that he's saying that, and obviously the visit went well for him to say that. still committed to another school. So I'm kind of sitting in more of actions or more than words there, So, but, I think that he's planning on coming back for a game sometime this fall. He's figuring that out right now of when he can fit that into his schedule. So if you can continue to get this guy on campus, you've got a good shot. And run me through the names again: David Stone, Dalen Evans, and who was the other one?
Jaden Jackson and Jamonta Waller.
Jackson and Jamonta Waller. I think Florida's in a really good spot with Jamonta Waller. I think that right now it's a Florida-Penn State battle for him. I think that, he's coming off of an Auburn visit this past weekend for an official visit. I think they did a good job with the visit. I still think that it's Penn State-Florida battle. I like the visit schedule that he has laid out because he's at Penn State this weekend, and then he's at Florida the next weekend. So even if Penn State rolls out the red carpet themselves, makes a big statement visit, he's still going to be able to visit Florida after that. So Florida kind of gets to maybe swing some momentum in their corner, kind of kill some of the momentum that maybe Penn State builds on their official visit. He's a big-time priority for Florida. I think they're in a really good spot for him. He's talking about making a decision there in August. I think it's the 26th that he's planning to make that decision there. Jaden Jackson's a hard cat to read. If you talk to him, he's down to 5 schools: Miami, Oklahoma, Texas, Florida. Those are the schools. Ohio State is the other school in there. He will talk highly of every school. He seems to genuinely like all 5 of those schools. And he's another guy that attends IMG Academy there in Bradenton, but he's from Indiana originally, Midwest type of guy. I think the Buckeyes are in a good spot for him. He'll officially visit them this weekend. I think that, again, it's tough to get a read on him because he does like everybody. And I think Florida's done a good job with him. I think of that group that you named right there, I think Florida's in the best spot for Jamonta Waller and Dalen Evans. I think Dalen is a little bit more of a tougher sell, maybe so, because you have to flip him, and A&M is the in-state school. They could probably get him on campus a little bit easier just because he's a Texas guy. But of that group, I think those are the 2 that I'd say Florida's in the best spot for.
Joseph asked on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mellon, any buzz on Jeremiah Smith?
Buzz, I think there is some buzz, just that Florida has done a really good job, and I think he says a lot of, he's saying all the right things about Ohio State. That's where he's been committed since December of last year. I do think he's going to be a tough flip. When you look at wide receivers, Ohio State has done a really good job. Brian Hartline, who coaches wide receivers, he's now their offensive coordinator, I believe, there at Ohio State. He's done a really good job recruiting Jeremiah. Ryan Day, an offensive-minded coach. Again, you look at Ohio State, it's kind of the proof is in the pudding with wide receivers. They just have done such a good job of producing those guys. But I do think Florida is still a factor for him. I don't think this is a guy that's just taking these official visits just to take them because they're free trips. I don't think that that's the case at all. I do think that while it's a tough sell to flip him, I do think the door is cracked, and I think that, he's already visited Georgia for an official there at the last weekend there in May, Florida State, Miami, and he'll be at Ohio State, I believe, this weekend for an official visit. So he's still got some trips taken there. But this is a guy that has also unofficially visited Florida on his own dime there earlier in the spring. So it's not like it's just one guy that's just taking the official visit and that's just all you're going to get because it's a free trip. He's also taken an unofficial visit where he had to put in the effort on his own. He's talking about possibly visiting for a game sometime this fall, a little far out to really have any kind of set dates for that. But this is a guy that is still planning to take some visits after the fact. So while I do think it's going to be tough, I think that, he's going to keep tabs on Florida's season. I think playing time is something that's important to him because I think every 5-star, guy at any position is wanting to try to make an impact early in their college career. In buzz in the sense of, do I think he's going to imminently flip to Florida or anything such as that? I would say no. But I do think there's buzz in the fact that Florida really did a good job with this visit. They did a good job with his family that were on the visit. I still think they're a player for him.
We got a text and a Facebook Live from Greg and George, taking our text line, asking kind of the same question. We want to know what's up with Austin Simmons. Saw him at Ole Miss this weekend.
Austin Simmons, he's Florida's 2025 quarterback commit, but he's an interesting guy because he has basically finished high school. He's finished all of his core credits that he needs for high school. He's already dual enrolling there at the community college level. So, this is a guy that could literally enroll at a college right now and be ready to go. He could be technically a reclassifying guy to the 2023 class, which is kind of unheard of for me. You don't see many guys that reclass 2 different classes up. So, again, like you said, he did visit Ole Miss. I do think that Ole Miss is interesting because they seem to have a little bit of buzz. I don't know that it's something to where from talking with people closer to the program around Florida, they seem to feel pretty good on where they're standing as far as being able to hold on to him. I do think that, where there's smoke, there's fire type of situation, to where I am actually keeping tabs on where things are going on with him. I'm kind of digging around, asking some questions. But as far as, anything that is really kind of blown up in my face so far of, man, this has got to worry about, I'm really panicking type thing, I'm not quite there yet, but it is something to where I am looking into for him.
All right, so we got a couple of Facebook lives here. Ted says, how much recruiting did DJ Lagway do last weekend?
Oh man, DJ Lagway. I can't say that I've covered recruiting as long as some people in this industry, but I've done it for, I think this is my 10th or 11th class that I've covered. I haven't seen a QB in any kind of commitment class for Florida that has recruited quite like DJ Lagway. I mean, this is a guy that, back in, I believe it was April, he took a flight on I think it was a Wednesday or Thursday or some midweek type day, just to fly down to Florida to spend time with Jeremiah Smith, just because he was taking an unofficial visit himself. I've never seen a quarterback committed to Florida literally just show up in the midweek just to recruit a guy. He's really active with guys. If you follow him on social media, he had his recruiting hat on this weekend, but I think he's also very smart how he recruits kids. He's not all in your face trying to shove Florida down these guys' throats. He's pretty calculated with it. So it's kind of cool to see, he makes sure to let Florida be known. And I think he kind of more so sells himself, being able to play with him. He's also got a really big personality where people are kind of gravitated to him. He's kind of a magnet for people. So I think that on top of, being active with the recruiting guys, I think he's just a genuinely good person that a lot of people want to be around. And if you can want to be around someone, you can easily sell of want to be around them in college, being able to play with them. So, he was really active with this weekend. Every visitor you talked to that wasn't committed to Florida was saying that DJ Lagway was recruiting him in some capacity. So he was being his usual self this past weekend.
Got a question here. It's kind of a two-part question. In your mind, is there anyone that was here this past weekend that may surprise you becoming a Gator when it's all said and done? Second part of the question is, there's another big weekend come up this weekend, correct?
Yes, there is. I think there's 14 guys coming in this weekend for official visits. And then, from anyone that would maybe surprise me from this past weekend, I think Ori Williams, the 3-star offensive tackle there out of Texas, he's a guy that took his first ever visit to Florida and was really upfront in saying that Florida really wasn't on his radar before he visited this past weekend. That visit catapulted them up into a top 3 area for him. He said that Georgia, LSU, and Florida are kind of looking like the top 3 for him right now. He's got some more official visits that he's going to take this summer. I think he's at A&M this weekend. I believe he'll be at LSU the weekend of the 16th, and then he's at Georgia the weekend of the 23rd. But he's also talking about Florida's doing a kind of a cookout type setting thing at the end of July there, whenever the dead period ends there. So he's already saying that he's going to come back for that. So you've got a guy that you made a big statement on an official visit. He'll take these other visits, and then you get him back there at the end of summer to kind of carry some momentum that you were able to build there on your official visit into the season. He's talking about making a mid-season type decision, October, November ballparks, not something like, he's really kind of circled a date or a timeline, but that's kind of ballpark what we're looking at there. So that's a guy that I think that, Florida, I mean, he's listed as, I think, 6'7", 6'8", and he looks absolutely the part. You have a lot of guys that are like, oh, I'm 6'7", and you see them in person 6'4". Like, he's truly looks like what he's listed at. So Florida really likes this guy. They're really putting the screws to him on trying to recruit him hard. They made a big statement this weekend. And I think another guy, too, that maybe would surprise me, and I think Florida's maybe in a better spot than what I would have thought coming out of the visit than heading into the visit, is 5-star edge Jordan Ross. He's right there out of Alabama. Florida's had some good luck there in the state of Alabama these last couple cycles, and kind of before the last couple cycles. I think that Kelby Collins, who hosted him and his mother this past weekend, did an excellent job. And Kelby was a pretty active recruiter himself in the 2023 cycle for Florida. Really smart kid, really knows how to, kind of work a room. And, he did a really good job with mom. Mom works and I believe she's a teacher. So she was really heavy on academics, and that's something that Florida's pitched hard. And Jordan Ross is a guy that's going to play the jack linebacker for Florida, that edge rusher type position. Florida has a dire need this cycle at that position. So Mike Peterson, Florida's outside linebackers coach, really sat Jordan and his mom down and was like, look, man, we need dudes at this position. And you are one of the best dudes in the country. You would be able to push for early playing time. So I think that the mix of academics and early playing time really made a big statement on him. I've heard mostly Tennessee and Georgia for him. So I still think that those teams are probably ones where I'd maybe more lean towards. But the official visit went really well to where I think that Florida was on the outside looking in to moving into a big player for him. We'll see. He's not really rushing either. He's not a guy that's talking about making a decision sometime this summer. He's probably going to take things in the fall, maybe take some more visits. Has already said that he's going to unofficially visit Florida. But again, we've got plenty of months until that's worked out to anything, some kind of set date. So that would be one that would surprise me. But I think that the mix of academics and the early playing time pitch, I think that that's one that maybe Florida's in a better spot than I would have thought heading in.
All right, last question for you, Blake, here. Bob from Virginia wants to know, what have you heard? What kind of recruiter is Austin Armstrong?
I think that he's a really good recruiter, and I say that because he's a younger guy. I think that that's something that guys can relate to. He just seems to have a big personality himself. He's already coming out of the gate there hot for Florida. He was a big person in recruiting 5-star safety Xavier Fields-May to Florida. So he's already got a big 5-star feather in his hat right out of the gate there for Florida. I saw a video on Twitter of him. So on the official visit after, kind of the dinners are over and stuff, players and, the recruits go out and hang out with their player hosts, right? They go kind of hang out with the team and those guys. Well, the parents go and hang out with the coaches and the staff members and, they, have some adult time. There's some karaoke that's singing. I saw a video on Twitter yesterday of Austin Simmons doing some karaoke himself, working the room there. It seemed like a lot of people had a really good time. So I think when you've got a guy like that is okay with putting himself out there, trying to really work a room, will really do whatever it takes to make sure these people have a good time. I think he's a really good recruiter. Maybe the early returns for him they seem positive to me at least.
Good deal. Blake, let everybody know how they can read your work.
Yeah, sure. Swamp 24/7. It's the Florida Gators 24/7 sports site. We're actually running a promotion right now for, you can get your first year for 60% off. I think it comes out to and if you wanted to do it for the year, it's like $43 for the entire year, so you can save a ton of money. We're also doing your first month for $1. So if you want to just give us a test drive, $1, that's all it's going to take. What can you get for $1 these days? So we're still rolling out recruiting coverage. They had a camp this past Monday where there's, guys we're still catching up with. We've caught up with most of the official visitors. Official visits are going to keep flowing for the next couple of weeks. I think there's 14 or 15 or something like that this weekend. I believe there's another 14 the weekend, the 16th. And then we've got Friday Night Lights there, that June 23rd on that Friday. So it's going to be a pretty busy month in Gatorland.
All right, one last question from Andy. How many wins you got for the Gators right now?
Man, I don't know. I'm thinking right now, I'm thinking 6. I think that's for me right now. I'm kind of curious to see, if these transfers that they've got in can really try to make that kind of statement. You've seen that, I think a lot of fans are kind of down on, just the way that Billy Napier has worked in the transfer portal. I think that people are, they do move slow, but, every transfer they've gotten has really made a pretty big impact. So I think that Graham Mertz is really going to be where the team goes. I think that he's kind of the keeper of this. The team's going to go as far as he can take him. If he can limit those turnovers, I think Florida can win more than those 6 games because there were a lot of games that they were in the mix for. They just could make a couple stops on defense. And the defense looked much better to me. I think that granted the offensive line had some injuries that they were dealing with, but that defense, if they can be a little bit better, I think that, that's going to help Florida out a lot. But I think it's going to end and it's going to start with Graham Mertz. So I'm interested to see how he does this season.
All right. You're in at 6. I'm in at a minimum of 8. So we'll see what happens.
Okay. Well, hopefully you're right and I'm wrong. I'd much rather you be right.
Blake, we appreciate your time, my man. Have fun. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
That's Blake Alderman joining us on the Titan MR hotline. We appreciate him. He does a tremendous job at what he does. At Chris Storing Mortgage, they do mortgage lending right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Storing Mortgage today at 352-244-0840. I hope you enjoyed today's program. Again, I want to thank Blake and Buddy Martin for joining us on the Titan MR hotline. We'll find out today what time the Gators play. Make sure you tune into our program tomorrow, folks. Have a great day. We'll see you then. Take care.